Amigas!
How's everyone doing today?
So excited that we're here.
Finally.
Our first podcast for Am Diosa, such an awesome book by Gutierrez.
Yes.
Oh my god, this book is so awesome.
It is. It's definitely a different read from our last book.
Yeah.
So this was a good one. So far so good.
Yeah. So today we're going to be reviewing pages 1 through 85.
85 or 80? I'm gonna say 8.
So let's say chapter 4. So it's page 81. Chapters 1 through 4.
Yes. So I think a little bit about the author and how we came to this book. You know, we got approached by Doctora Hood on Instagram, and she really advocated for this book. She specializes in education and ethnic studies. So she was really intrigued by this book. She really recommended it. We checked out the therapist writer, and she really is about helping women, specifically Latinx women or women of color, find themselves by finding their soul, right? So this book is really, the big difference is that it's really an exploration of ourselves, right?
A lot of soul searching.
A lot of soul searching. So it did require writing. It requires a little bit of journaling and really just taking the time to sit with yourself, which is a little different because I think we're used to just doing our 4 pages and going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Right.
definitely have to take time to just think about stuff, analyze it, and write it down. Like, I know I had some hard times where I'm like, I don't know, and I had to just keep reading and rereading, and then I'll read a little bit past it, and then I'll go back. I'm like, let me see if I maybe did find my tikkun.
Yeah. So you guys know I usually cram it all like on one day, right? I do my self-care and my hour or 2 of reading. And with the soul work, right, that we have to do, it literally prolongs it a lot. So I'm like, there's no way I could cram this in one day. Like, I really have to stick to my 4 pages a day. So that's what I'm trying to do, because the last couple weeks I'm like, yeah. And then the questions, I felt the same way. I couldn't find. I'm like, well, my parents used to, chanclearme and, con el cinto, but I'm like, is that trauma? Like, I just find myself going back to a lot of the soul searching assignments that she was having us do, and I can't seem to pinpoint like trauma.
Yeah.
And I think the misconception with trauma a lot of times is that some huge event happened to you in your life. And what it really is have you had a moment in your life that was really high in stress? That's it.
So it doesn't even have to be childhood.
No, it doesn't. I mean, your childhood's gonna kind of set up how you react to trauma. So for example, if you had like an amazing upbringing, your parents were great and everything was perfect, and then you get married and your marriage is nothing like that, or what you thought marriage was supposed to be, then that's traumatic because you are totally just like slapped in the face with, this is the reality.
No, pues sí. But you know what? I like her way of writing the book. I really felt like during the whole book, she's like, doing this to me, rubbing my back, and she's just the words,
walking you through
the words she uses and how she puts it all together. It's really nice. And I do the audio, so I don't know if you guys have heard.
I haven't.
Are you doing both?
I'm doing both. Yeah, I try to multitask, but I like hearing her voice. Some authors have a weird voice, but hers is very soothing. Yeah, I like it.
I don't think I've ever been able to get into audio, but that sounds cool.
In the car, try it.
Oh, I think I'd fall asleep. You guys know I can't.
Yeah.
You guys know me and driving and sleeping.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been recommending this book a lot just because I am a therapist, and a lot of the work that she's doing is what I already do with a lot of my clients. And it's really cool to do it for myself. I'm constantly about looking inward and doing some self-work. So I think this book is something that I'm really enjoying. So let's get into it a little bit. So she starts with return to soul, right? I think so this I usually describe it as like autopilot. A lot of times we're just living our lives and not really looking inward. And I think by returning to your soul, that's kind of what I got, which was like get out of autopilot and kind of come back.
Yeah.
Right. I felt like oftentimes she kept saying, return to home, and I just didn't get what she meant by that. I'm home. Like, I feel like I am home. Like, I have a home. I'm happy with my home. Like, what is it that she's referring to? So I had to dig a little deeper because, like you said, you know, it's more about like on the go, and just really taking a moment to connect with yourself.
Right.
So that's kind of like
put aside the daily routine.
right. But at first I was like, okay, well, what does she mean? Come home. She says that a lot of times.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and I think home is always going to be that place in your heart where you go. You know what I mean?
yes.
All right, so she talks about the departure through the return. Did you guys, the soul home you highlighted here?
Yeah, I did. I'm telling you, the soul home, that's what stood out to me. And I'm like, what does she mean by that? But did you highlight anything that you want to share?
I actually didn't want to be highlighting this book, so I was doing a lot of just like penciling in. But I don't have anything here. But I did like jumping into the soul work of creating an altar in your home. And you know, we had posted about different types of altars that people do, and I like the fact that, I mean, she says like it doesn't even, you know, some people put, you know, la Virgencita or any santos or anything like that of your religion, but it doesn't even have to be that. It could just be, you know, a safe space for you to just let it, you know, all out, let it be, feel at ease and just refreshed, you know, with stones or anything like that.
Yeah.
Candles. I love candles.
Did you make one? Did you pick a place?
I have one on my nightstand, so literally right on the side of my bed.
Same.
I mean, everything. I already have it there. Like, I always go to Bath and Body Works, so I always have the sprays like for your pillow and stuff. So I already had that, so now I just added a couple other little things, like a candle, which usually my candle's like farther than me, but I want it closer now, and then some other little. I'm starting to buy a couple of other things that are more positive energy things.
Yeah, I have I still need to get a picture, but I have my crystals. I have my candle, my stress relief candle that my old boss gifted to me. And I have the Virgencita, of course, que no falta la Virgencita. I have my book, and I just need a picture, and I feel like that's I got my little space done. But I also did want to mention she has a website. Have you guys been able to look at her website?
I haven't.
No, I checked it out because on her Instagram, and we've been obviously tagging her on Instagram on all of our posts, so make sure you guys check out her page because she's got such an awesome Diosa community, and she has this retreats like in Puerto Rico, and I'm like,
yeah, that I've been seeing,
and the mastermind.
Yes, right. So she's got a lot of
she does a lot of amazing work.
I would love to do a retreat. Right. Like the places they go to also is just like so relaxing.
Yeah, like I want to be there.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's something
really
that I'm like,
with the women that are also focused on that. I know it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. Yes.
So I think one of the main things that, you know, she does set you up to kind of start the reading with an open mind, an open heart, and really just be open to searching for yourself and, you know, going back home, which is, you know, that happy place inside of you. And it's really about coming back and being able to, you know, increase that self-esteem, feel empowered, which is a lot of what we try to advocate with our page, right?
Yeah.
Did any of you guys play the song, The Shedding Skin?
I did.
You did?
It's a nice one. And after, I have Spotify, so after I played it, it kind of just starts playing songs in that genre. And it was amazing. I was like, oh my God, like, this is my way to just put on when I'm reading, you know, in the background, or just while I'm relaxing and turn on my candle on the side of my bed.
Oh, I'll have to try it.
Cool.
She did mention she had her own playlist, so I wonder if it's on there.
I haven't checked it out. But I think my cousin Lacey, she posted it that she screenshot it.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then I texted her and said, oh my God, did you let the other songs play like after that, whatever came in? She goes, no, I didn't. And I was like, you should. Like, that station is really good. So I recommend it. It's such really nice music. It's something you don't hear on the daily, you know.
See, so we all gotta listen to the song.
The sound bowl music.
Oh, yeah.
It's really relaxing.
All right. So just if you are going to be reading this, just have that open mind and realize that you are going to be running into some of your own blocks that might stop you from going deeper. Then we go getting to the root of it all. Chapter 2, and that's really exploring the patterns that have become ingrained in you. So a lot of this, again, goes back, in my view, to autopilot. We do things over and over from a very young age the exact same way. And we kind of just don't even realize the patterns that we have. And it really takes some work to dig deep and find some of those blocks that we have.
Right, and it also talked about the maladaptive behaviors, and I was like, what is that? So that was actually something good to know, and I can actually read about it. So this can lead to maladaptive behaviors, which are behaviors that aren't helpful and stop you from adjusting in a healthy way to your environment and situations. Now, some examples can be substance abuse, attention-seeking behavior,
Workaholism.
love addiction, aggressive outbursts, yes, that one, internet addiction. And so I was reading this and I'm like, okay, but I thought about friends and I'm like, oh, she's got this, oh, she's got that, and I'm like, wow, yeah, it always comes back. And then you think about, like, you know, the trauma, and you bring it back to the questions that she previously had us do on chapter 1 soul work, and I'm just like, oh, it's funny how I can definitely like pinpoint it for my friends but not myself. But
yeah.
So and I think sometimes too, like what we have to remember is, even if we don't do some of these patterns, like if we're looking at them and we think back to, like, oh, when I was going through a tough time, I, you know, put myself completely in work and I didn't give a damn about anyone else. When I was going through a really hard time, I just concentrated on my partner. I was all about him, all about her.
Not being able to put the phone down.
Yeah.
Internet addiction.
And then it's just like, well, what do I do when I'm really stressed out? And, you know, sometimes, yeah, we all end up on Instagram for a while, on a loop, just scrolling, right? Instead of actually facing what the issues are. So, I mean,
because it's harder.
Yeah, and I think realistically, we've all done some of this at some point in our lives, you know?
So Nadie had said, like, she feels like she's always there just soothing you and walking you through it. So on page 38, right at the bottom after these examples of patterns, it says, and remember, as you move through this work, that you are not alone. I am here with you, holding your heart and rooting you on this journey back home to loving you. What I know for sure is this: you must get to the raw, messy, dark root of the pain in order to alchemize and heal it. And she keeps going on, but I mean, she's
she is
there, like holding your hand.
She's pretending she's holding my hand.
And not only that, you got this group of amigas, all in Read Amigas, that are reading along with you, also holding your hand, going through this, you know, whole journey.
Yeah, and so anyone taking the time to post some of what they're finding, thank you for sharing, because I know some of this can be hard. We even had to take a step back and say, well, how much are we going to be sharing?
Some of it is personal.
And honestly, it's true. Like, some stuff I'm like, okay, what are we gonna share, right? Even here on this space, right? We talked about before, what exactly are we sharing? And it's kind of being vulnerable at the same time, right? To our other book, but a quote or something a statement she said was, diving deep and getting honest is hard, and yet is empowering and necessary work.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm
it's
like
vulnerability.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So what was this
good
one?
We did the shadow word in the infinity symbol.
Yes.
That was. I feel like if I need to do it again, just because the word didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't know, is that cheating? Like, you just need to stick to my word.
So explain how you did it. Like, how did you go about landing on it? Because I did the audiobook while I was doing it and had to go and get the book. And I'm like, what is this? But on the audio, she says to place a pen or a finger and go around it in the infinity, right? But she names the words.
Oh.
So I'm like, of course I'm going to stop wherever the word lands that fits to me. So I had to stop listening to audio, go get my book, and just do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, then how are you on audio? So don't do it on the audiobook. Make sure you get your book and you close your eyes. And I actually did breathing, deep breaths.
But I'm sure, her saying it and passing the word, your finger's going a lot faster than her words.
Oh, true.
So, no le vas a caer muy bien.
Yeah, no.
Quieres la good word.
Yeah, what word did you get?
I landed on bad.
I did too.
Oh my god.
What did you get?
I landed on unlovable.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I was like, let me dig on this one. And I could see how that could pertain, you know? I've always, very big on being single. So I'm like, is that something to do with it? So I explored it.
I low-key landed like right in between bad and dependent, but I was like,
Mine too. Let's go for dependent.
Those are not great, guys.
I wanted to do it all over, but then I felt like it'd be cheating.
Well, maybe
but
dependent would be more. Makes
I
sense.
think
don't know.
so. For bad, what comes to my mind is more like a fear of looking like you're a bad guy.
Okay.
Ay, eso me gusta.
Sí, porque eso sí makes
So
sense
that
to me.
means that means you are constantly saying like, don't do that. That makes you a bad person.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like I'm sure you guys have noticed that my change in me is that before I used to always care what people thought of me.
Uf,
So siempre
demasiado.
quería caer bien, and I hated knowing that no le caía bien a alguien, and I've grown out of that where it's just like I
Same.
could care less, you know.
Yeah, and so
if
when
you don't fit in my bubble, you don't.
yeah, you've done some
It's okay.
shifts, but yeah. So that's like
Oh, that's a good
that's
one.
very limiting.
Thanks.
You remember I told
Yes.
you like with children, like don't tell them you are bad.
Right, which
Right?
I changed.
Yes.
Yeah, which
Bad
really
choices.
yes, which really is what you tell yourself. I am bad. So if I do this, I'm a bad person. If I do that, I'm a bad person.
That put the nail on the coffin then, yes.
So this is cheating because I'm a therapist and I know them both very well.
Right. We get all the tips and everything. Yeah, I didn't even think about it like that. So now that you say it, I'm like, oh.
So keep exploring, guys, because sometimes you think you're not hitting it.
So I mean, as anybody that isn't also, the word isn't making sense, throw it out there, and our lovely Jess would kind of probably break it down. Even though she doesn't know you, she could break it down and turn it into a different way. Where bad, I was just like, I don't have anything bad in my
I'm
life.
not a bad person.
Right.
Exactly.
But we don't like,
Exactly.
and she just flipped it a little bit where it just se nos prende el foco, like, okay, we don't like being seen bad. We don't like people seeing us, as a bad person.
And so then as you keep going, right, when you dig deep, then you start thinking, where did I get this idea that because of my behaviors, I'm a bad person?
And that just hit right home
Okay.
because I always grew up, till this day, my dad has always said, siempre date a querer. Know your values, know your morals, y una persona que es bella por dentro y por fuera siempre tiene que dar a querer. He would always tell me that.
So basically, English
You've said that
translation.
quite a few times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, I think it stuck to me.
That's a phrase you
So
mentioned
date
a lot.
querer means something like
Allow
make
yourself
sure
to be loved.
Yeah, so like make sure that you carry yourself in a way that people can love you.
Mm-hmm.
Right, which again that puts a condition on love, right? And where love is supposed to be unconditional, and when we do that to our children, it's like, well, then I constantly need to be working in order to be loved,
Yeah.
right? Or I'm bad, right? All right, ladies, good work.
Oh, man, awesome.
All right.
That was quick.
So now we go into
Thank
the
you for that,
tikkun.
Jess. Oh, yeah, the tikkun. That one was a hard one, too.
So I would say, I mean, if you were stuck originally because of the word, then when you go over the tikkun now, maybe it'll make a little more sense.
So
Right.
we'll
So
go back and
just
read
go
it.
back, go back through it. Because I'm sure there has been choices in our lives where we act a certain way or do certain things just so that that word doesn't overbear us,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes
True.
sense.
All right, so we'll come back to that one, guys.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So just to clarify what the tikkun is, it's a pattern that continues to repeat itself over and over again.
Yeah. So usually it's like wanting to be likable, which we know can
Right.
get
What is
everyone.
The fear underneath this, the pattern. Yeah. But yeah,
So
I mean,
wound exploration. I think that. Which one
That
was
one
it?
is like going into childhood, but then she even said, sometimes it's not going to be in your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Our original love wound is oftentimes where we download our love blueprint. So I think mine, like Nady said, didn't really, was with any childhood trauma, and I could say that love wound could be it, where my first love, it didn't go right, and my first relationship and stuff like that. So I think things kind of start coming out of the grave from there.
Yeah.
Yo me puse a pensar. I was thinking, I'm like, what were my heartbreaks? But I just, I didn't have any heartbreaks that I can think of.
No.
Nobody broke my heart. Or, they mentioned cheating a lot or like the abuse. And, gracias a Dios, I've never had all that. So,
But again,
Again, like you
dig
said.
deep and see what that may be. It might be patterns you know, in a relationship, not the one that ends, but if you're in a relationship where you feel like you have to prove yourself, or like, even with friends, I wouldn't even just call it a romantic one, right? Be with friends, it'd be with family, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
She keeps mentioning spiritual archaeologists. I really feel like after this book, I'm gonna be one.
Definitely.
You know, besides Am Diosa. And then, because I highlighted, we must become spiritual archaeologists, exploring and digging into the depths of our psyches and spirits to see what is there.
Yeah, definitely. What we feel into, we can heal. So if we didn't take the time to feel, so it's really interesting because in a world of positivity where everyone's supposed to be positive, that's very toxic. And she does talk about that. And the reason why is because you go through something, and instead of feeling the reciprocated emotion, like you go through something and the response should be sad, you constantly tell yourself, no, I need to learn from this, I need to grow from this, I need to be a better person.
Right.
Then you can't heal it because you never allowed yourself to feel it.
Yep.
Sharing her story with Mr. M was also very, very empowering, just to get to know her more and know, I mean, where she had to start from, you know?
Yeah.
And that was deep. Like, I was reading it out loud to my husband, and he was like, wow, that's a lot.
No, that's trauma, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? Honestly, like, I love when therapists write books and share so much about themselves, because as a therapist, I know we've talked about how I'm always like, how much can I really share about my story, you know?
And I know, like you've said, you know, like it's not, you can't really share personal stuff as a therapist, but it could be, I guess, bad and good for that certain person. But as for me, I see it as like, okay, like you can connect more with them because you know they're just another person. Like they also go through these things. They're not a therapist because they're perfect.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference between sharing like in a book and sharing with your patient or your client.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I do love that. All right, what was the next work?
Fears? Fear and anger?
Yeah.
Fear and anger are like monsters of a psyche when you don't know how to work with them. So fear and anger, a lot of time, well, fear is usually the underlying emotion under anger. A lot of times we get angry. I tell people that I'm way better at being angry than any other emotion. You're never gonna hear me say I'm sad or I'm hurt. It's anger. And I'm more aware of it now as I get older. But yeah, I think anger is a more acceptable emotion. And I think a lot of times when our children cry, we always say, don't cry. But when they get angry, we're just like, oh, they're angry.
Right. That is very easy.
Yeah.
So true.
Like, stop crying.
Definitely. Okay. What's next? What was the next chapter? Or what did you highlight? Did you guys highlight anything?
I went into page 54 and I highlighted because she has us write down like our fears, right?
Oh, yeah.
But the way she had us do it, I was like, whoa, you know? So it says, take a sheet of paper and pen. On the left side of the page, write down the top fears. And she gives you a list, right? So I wrote all my fears. And then she tells you, next to that column, on the right side, write the emotional cost. So for example, if I am afraid of being abandoned, the emotional cost is I am super controlling with my man. So I was like, you know, like I'm controlling because I don't want to lose him in a way, right?
Because you're afraid of being abandoned.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, so when I was doing those, I'm like, oh, see, so I think this is probably the best soul work that I've done so far.
That one I started doing just on my book, on my phone. But then as I was writing, I was like, oh my God, I really do need a paper because this is so much to write and to really reflect. But I ended up finishing it just because I was in the living room and I didn't want to get up. But I did color my fear, and then what was the other one? The emotional cost.
Yeah.
So I'll share a couple. At times, I would write them and I'm like, no, it doesn't really make sense. I think I'm not really digging deep that I'm really, what is my emotional cost to it? So as I would write them, I would go back and I'm like, no, that's not the problem. So I am afraid to lose control. So I feel the emotional cost is I feel I need to learn and understand how to help everyone. So I'm always kind of judging myself for not knowing an answer. Yeah, how to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So the next is what is it called? Next, I want you to write another page on the other side of the fear. What is a lesson for growth? So my lesson for growth is it's okay to just be there for someone and not have an answer for them.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's really hard. At
Mhm.
least I agree completely. But yeah, as I was doing these two, like there were some that I was like, this doesn't apply to me. But I
Yeah.
challenged myself so that I could find an answer.
Yeah, a lot of the ones that she had here, I couldn't really relate too much. So she said, write your own. So I kind of just started writing my own as well.
Well,
I did these just to challenge myself.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I mean, where is it? The one about being ugly?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think most people would see me and never think that I see myself that way,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right, you don't portray it.
But I mean, so I had to like dig. I'm like, okay, how can I figure this out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know?
You took the challenge.
So do you think, just like right now, you said you challenged yourself, like even though like you kind of were like, I don't think any of these fit with me, but you challenge yourself, like can you still then just find something?
Yeah, definitely. So like, I would never consider myself ugly. But then it's like, okay, well, what's the emotional cost of thinking that way? Well, I don't know. I check mirrors all the time. Like, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Right. And so just like, it doesn't matter what it would be, but digging deep can get you an answer.
Yeah, like so at first I'm like, okay, some of these did apply, right? Like I am afraid of losing loved ones. So it's a couple of these. What other ones did I write? I don't know, but I forgot my journal. But off the top of my head, how I broke it down was I do affirmations daily. So it was really like hard to do the opposite, right? Because instead of saying I am strong, I am smart, I am beautiful, you're literally like,
why not see the negative?
yeah, you're going the whole opposite route where it's like I am afraid of failing, I am afraid of, you know. And so I was just like, but I dig deeper, and then I'm like, I really did align the I am afraids with my affirmations that I do daily, and that's how I was able to align and write down all of everything I'm afraid of and come up with my emotional cost based on my affirmations and my values.
And that makes sense, because a lot of times our affirmations are to combat these fears. Right? And so, I mean, it makes sense. And again, like, yes, you can be like, love yourself 100%, but then every once in a while your boss is like, hey, you know what, you didn't get this right. And you're like, shit, you know, and you do question yourself. And I don't think there's anyone that doesn't.
Right.
Okay. So she always has good little quotes at the end of a chapter. You, beloved, are more lovely when you are not more lovely when you are smiling than when you are crying. Your tears are sacred rivers of healing. It's so funny because I saw a post that said, desahogar is such a powerful word, which means undrowning. And a lot of my clients that are Hispanic, I'm like, well, how do you feel when you cry? And they're like, oh, me desahogo.
Yeah.
Which means when you start crying, you undrown. So like you're like drowning, right? And the only way to heal from that is to cry.
So how would you, what would you have, so vent. When someone vents, how would you say that in Spanish?
Desahogar, ¿no?
Desahogar.
Lo mismo?
Yeah.
Estoy desahogando
And it's
contigo.
letting it out. And that's something that I've always found very interesting about my Latinx monolingual community, is that my clients, they have some great sayings. Like, they understand they need to get it out. I'm like, how do you know that? But then you keep it all in.
Yeah.
But, you know, obviously a lot of stigma in sharing, but they
It's just the
understand
words.
the concept.
And the words and quotes just hit different in Spanish. They always do.
Yeah. Definitely.
So chapter 3, she starts with learning how to make like a poem yourself.
Yeah, but it's like, how does the past affect you? And it's taking that wound and allowing that wound to speak. I did the poem, but I didn't do the song and the drumming.
Yeah.
I didn't do the
Mine was
poem.
pretty late at night.
But it also, like, the wound was, I am bad. So just explore that. 'Cause
And
today.
an emotional trigger.
Yeah, those emotional triggers. I think we do a soul activity, soul work on that.
Yeah. How do you recognize your emotional triggers? I think so. That one's huge because in order to do any healing, you first must be aware. If you're not aware of what needs to be changed, then you're probably not going to want to change it because you're not looking at it. So when you start recognizing your emotional triggers, like what throws you off, what brings your mood down, what shifts your energy, then it tells you like, oh, this is where I should start healing, right?
Yeah.
So that one's always good.
Yeah, like I wrote down all my triggers, and my husband does a lot of my triggers.
I felt like I could write some of their own triggers. Like, wait a minute, let's work on this one for you.
It's so true. But see, she writes them down. And I like how she gives examples, right? So you kind of get a vision of the layout of how you're supposed to write it and what exactly is the trigger.
Yeah, and I checked these off, and it's so funny because I was like looking at them and I was like, all of mine are because I avoid. So anything like, let's talk about things. Like, no, that's not. Like,
oh, yeah.
So one of my big triggers was like, oh, we should talk about things. Like, no, we shouldn't.
I'm past it. I'm over it.
I'm good.
I'll talk about it when I want.
Yeah. So, all right.
Proactive formula.
The concept of klipot, which is a Jewish word. A Jewish mysticism is defined as a shell made of your darkness and tikkun. By facing and overcoming your obstacles, you crack the shell upon and are then able to access the light. So again, once you can identify the triggers, then you can actually face them, right? But if you're not identifying, right, you're not going to have that moment of klipot.
I like this saying she says here on page 69. You are a vessel, and the more you fill the vessel with the truth of who you are as divine, as Diosa, the more you live in your life and choose empowering soul wholeness versus the wounded, fragmented self.
Yeah. And I think, what she says is she uses choice as a big thing. And it's true, right? We can choose to dig deep and we can choose not to.
Yeah.
And only by pausing instead of reacting can we choose. So like some people, I tell everyone, like if you are in an argument or something, I'm the type of person that I need to walk away. Like I can't be in that situation because it is a trigger. So I know I need to walk away in order to make the choice to actually be proactive and heal some of that. So I always have to pause when I'm angry.
Give it some time.
Oh my god, now that you bring that up, so I'm the type that likes to talk about it, right? Like, don't you walk away from me. And my little one, she has a fit, and and so I witnessed this. It's my husband and my little one, and she got upset, and she goes, and George wants to just, dodge it, like, okay, you're fine. And she goes, no, we have to talk about it. And I never use those words. It's just, like how I handled the situation with her, with George. And so she totally gave it to him, and she was like, no, we need to talk about this. And I'm like, babe, you are in for a run for this. And so he's like, I'm like, well, you will practice with me, and then you'll do it with her, and you'll know how to communicate better with both of us.
That is so good.
All right. Okay.
Let's see what else.
What else stood out? You want to go to the next one?
The bonus tool. Speak out loud or to self what you desire on the other side of the emotional trigger. For example, I desire to feel safe, and it is my intention to share it anyway that makes me feel safe and heard. I am scared, but I am here for myself. I am simply scared, but I desire to feel calm. I desire to have a conversation from grounded space that makes me feel confident, cool, and collected.
Yeah. And so once you can do the work and identify the triggers, then you can identify what you want and how you want to feel. You can identify what's on the other side. Okay.
So it goes into the other, the inner child and the adult.
So that one is about child work. And recognizing the cries of your inner child, being the loving parent that you always wanted. And I think that's big. I don't know. I mean, it just depends. In my family, I was always allowed to vent and yell and scream. But then they were like, can you go do that in your room? I don't want to hear it, So it wasn't like, okay, let's sit in this space, let's talk about it. And I was very, much wanted that.
Yeah.
Obviously now I don't, but that's because I learned that that's not what you do.
Yeah.
But I think, and I see it with, I can't say that I've been the best at that. But when you're a parent, you're like sitting there with a screaming child, you're just like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you had parents that were really in tune with your emotional reaction, which I don't know any parents that are really like that, that's kind of where you do this work.
And this is what brought me to that scenario with my daughter, where she's very like, you have to hear how I feel, you know?
Hear me out.
Yeah. So it's different nowadays. Not like how our household used to be, for sure.
Yeah. So I think when we're doing this work, it's really remembering that, like, and why do I react this way? Well, I run because I was told just, okay, get over it, go walk it off, like, get it, you'll be fine.
It's not a big
you know?
deal. Just
It's not a big deal. So I think, you know, like I said, unless you had parents that sat there with you and went through a very loving dialogue, then this is something anyone can do.
And I'm really trying to do this dialogue, like
With yourself?
Yeah, with my little one more than anything.
Well, this has to do with yourself.
Right, but when I was reading this, it brought it up where like I need to do it with myself, but I'm like, si lo hago con mi niña, I should be able to do it with myself, right? So
That is true.
Well, my only recommendation is don't avoid yourself.
Right? No, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, apply it to yourself.
So she does some really cool things like the solar plexus healing. So some of the activities where you have to do more work, like building an altar, I didn't do. That's just me. I'm like, I can write, but I'm not.
You don't feel you need that.
No, it's not that I don't need it. It's just I'm not very great at organizing like situations that are like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not crafty. I'm not like, I'm just not that type of person. So I think I struggle with those, and I should do more of that.
You probably just carry it with you.
Yeah. It's just like, okay.
The solar plexus healing. The rum.
RAM.
She goes into candles and
Yeah.
she says buy a yellow votive candle, and if you can find a non-toxic one, even better.
So,
once you have the candle before
So this
you
is
light
the
it.
stuff that I'm really bad at.
Like, you don't see yourself like, so do you
Setting
meditate?
I do, but it's like like all my clients, we do 3 minutes. Like, I don't sit there and meditate for a long time.
Yeah, I like the 3-minute one.
You like the Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like I've sent my friends who have anxiety like structured meditation, and if you can do 3 minutes a day, but really guided, like YouTube has amazing stuff. I just think like unless you practice meditation with like someone who does meditation as a living, it's kind of hard to do on your own.
Yeah, I when I first started meditating, I'm like, am I even doing this right?
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah.
But I just had to read a lot, and I incorporated my crystals and then my affirmations, and I felt like I had something down. I feel like I was doing something right. And then now it's more easy, and so it's like,
I did experience like my first full-on deep meditation at SEPA.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I was like, oh my god, I really felt out of my body.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah, because when you do a guided meditation, it's so different.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And you're just in the whole zone.
So I think that's where we're gonna end it. I hope that everyone's enjoying the book. I think we're enjoying the book, and you know, like sometimes discussion helps, right?
Yeah.
So we will be having a discussion coming up soon, so that we can do a little bit more healing and exploring, like you guys heard or saw with us. Sometimes one of us might be like, well, I don't see it, and that's kind of how this club started, right? Where we started reading together, and it was like, well, I don't get what this is trying to tell me. And I mean, here we found a couple things that maybe we hadn't noticed that were right there.
Yeah, it's awesome. So share it and ask questions. We have a therapist here.
Yes.
But still, I mean, even not only Jess can answer it. I mean, all of us just, you know, can be on the same shoes as you and find the answers.
And if you have like, so, you know, at the beginning she sets it up. If you go into it with an open mind and open heart, and you recruit your amigas to read with you, and you're open to like saying like, hey, this isn't speaking to me, they see something that you might not. And just open-heartedly, I think, trying not to get offended or hurt, but just being open-minded, right?
Right. Yeah. So invite your amigas, or have your own little, you know, what we're creating here. If you guys can duplicate it and do it in your own space with your own friends, great. You know, we might be strangers and you're like, what the heck, who are they? Not comfortable to share. Well, then you create the space with your friends, and, you know,
talk about
it. So
yeah, and
That's
so we will have more discussion groups to kind of help more people figure out some of these things. All right, so bye, Amigas.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.